The courtroom is dead silent except for my children's soft crying from the back row. Every sob from Felix tears another piece from my heart, and I can hear Hazel trying to comfort him even though she's crying too. Trevor's lawyer, Donovan Price, holds up a phone like it's a weapon, his face arranged in theatrical disgust as he walks slowly toward the judge's bench. Your Honor, these messages prove Ms. Cromwell is unstable and dangerous. She threatened to hurt the children if she doesn't get full custody. His voice booms through the courtroom, each word carefully chosen for maximum impact. Allow me to read just one of these disturbing texts sent from Ms. Cromwell's phone to my client just last week. He clears his throat dramatically and reads from the screen. If you try to take my babies, I'll make sure you never see them again. They'll pay for what you've done to me. I'll hurt them before I let them call another woman mommy. The gasps from the gallery hit me like physical blows. I feel my lawyer, Rita Blackstone, tense beside me, her hand briefly touching my arm in warning to stay calm. But how can I stay calm when these lies are being presented as truth? When my own children are listening to accusations that I would harm them? Judge Harold Weston leans forward, his weathered face transforming from neutral observation to visible revulsion as he reads the phone screen Price holds up to him. His eyes, which had regarded me with professional detachment just moments ago, now carry something far worse than anger. They carry disgust, disappointment, and a decision already half-formed. When he looks at me, I see myself through his eyes. Another unhinged mother using her children as weapons in a bitter divorce. Ms. Cromwell, the judge's voice is ice-cold steel, these are extremely serious allegations. Threatening harm to children, your own children, is not something this court takes lightly. My hands shake as I grip the edge of the defendant's table, my knuckles white with the effort of not screaming that it's all lies. The wood is smooth under my palms, worn by countless other desperate parents who've sat in this same chair fighting for their children. I want to jump up, to shout that I never sent those messages, that I would die before hurting my babies. But Rita's training echoes in my mind. Stay calm, wait your turn, don't give them ammunition by appearing unstable. Trevor sits at the plaintiff's table, looking every inch the concerned father. His new suit is perfectly pressed, his expression a masterpiece of worry and sorrow. He reaches up to wipe away what might be a tear, though I know him well enough to recognize the performance. This is Trevor in his element, selling his story just like he sells luxury homes to wealthy clients, and the judge is buying every word. Daddy's telling the truth? I hear someone whisper behind me, and my stomach drops when I realize it's Simone, Trevor's girlfriend, speaking just loudly enough for people nearby to hear. Those poor children. Thank God they have him. The weight of the room's judgment presses down on me. Every stranger in this courtroom now believes I'm a monster. The court reporter won't meet my eyes. The bailiff has shifted slightly, positioning himself between me and the judge as if I might suddenly become violent. Even my own lawyer seems to be calculating damage control rather than defense. My throat burns with unshed tears, but I won't cry. Not here, not in front of Trevor, not when he's waiting for me to break down and prove his point about my instability. I force myself to breathe slowly, to maintain the composed exterior, while inside I'm screaming. Then I hear it. A small chair scraping against the floor in the back of the courtroom. Your Honor. The voice is young but clear, cutting through the heavy atmosphere like a bell. Everyone turns, and there stands my 8-year-old daughter, Hazel. She's wearing the blue dress with daisies that she picked out specially for court, the one she said made her feel brave. Her small hands are trembling, but her chin is raised in determination that reminds me of myself at that age. Your Honor, I have something you need to see. Judge Weston's stern expression falters for a moment, replaced by surprise. Young lady, please sit down. This is not appropriate. Children cannot address the court without being called as witnesses. But Hazel doesn't sit down. She takes a step forward, and I see Trevor start to rise from his chair, his carefully maintained mask slipping for just a second to reveal panic underneath. Please, Judge Weston, just listen for 1 minute. Hazel's voice grows stronger, and she reaches into her small backpack, the one with unicorns on it that she carries everywhere. That's not my mom's real phone. The phone Mr. Price is showing you isn't the one my mom uses. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Price spins around, his face flushing red. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The child has obviously been coached." But Hazel keeps talking, her voice rising above the chaos. "I have my mom's real phone right here." She pulls out my current phone, the one with the cracked screen from when I dropped it, helping Felix off the monkey bars. But more important than that, I have this. She pulls out a second phone, one with a familiar pink case that makes my blood run cold. It's my old phone, the one I reported stolen 3 months ago, the one I thought was gone forever. "This is the phone those mean messages came from," Hazel announces, her young voice carrying a truth that seems to make the walls themselves lean in to listen. "And I took it from Simone's purse this morning because I knew she'd been hiding it. I knew because I've seen her and Daddy using it when they thought I wasn't looking." The silence that follows is absolute. Even Felix has stopped crying. Every eye in the courtroom is fixed on my 8-year-old daughter as she stands there holding 2 phones, one in each small hand, like scales of justice themselves. Trevor's carefully constructed world begins to crack. "This is ridiculous," he starts to say, but his voice has lost its smooth confidence. Simone has gone pale, her hand flying to her purse as if just now realizing what's missing. Judge Weston leans forward, his eyes sharp now with a different kind of interest. "Bailiff," he says slowly, never taking his eyes off Hazel, "please secure both of those phones as evidence immediately." And in that moment, as Hazel walks forward with the dignity of someone 3 times her age, I realize that sometimes the truth doesn't come from lawyers or evidence folders or expert testimony. Sometimes it comes from an 8-year-old girl brave enough to stand up in a room full of adults and say what everyone else is afraid to see. The entire courtroom holds its breath as my daughter hands over the phones, and I watch Trevor's face transform from confident victor to cornered liar in the span of a single heartbeat. 6 months ago, my life was nothing like this nightmare. I was Bethany Cromwell, the friendly librarian at Oakwood Elementary who organized reading circles and helped kids discover their love for books. Every morning started the same beautiful way. Felix would crawl into my bed around 6 a.m., his warm little body curling against mine while whispering, "Is it time for dinosaur pancakes yet?" 5 minutes later, Hazel would appear in the doorway, already dressed but with her hair a wild mess, asking if I could do the special braid she'd seen on YouTube. Our apartment wasn't much to look at from the outside, just a 2-bedroom unit on the 3rd floor of an aging building on Maple Street. But inside, we'd made it magical. The living room walls were covered with the kids' artwork, and I'd strung fairy lights around the windows that made everything glow golden in the evenings. Hazel had helped me paint her and Felix's room with clouds on the ceiling, and we'd spent an entire weekend putting glow-in-the-dark stars in accurate constellations, because Hazel insisted they needed to be scientifically correct. The divorce from Trevor had been finalized exactly 13 months ago, on a rainy Thursday that felt like the first day of my real life. We'd been married for 10 years, and I'd spent at least 7 of them making excuses for him. Trevor's just stressed about work, I'd tell myself when he missed Felix's first steps because of a client dinner. He shows love differently, I'd rationalize when he forgot Hazel's birthday, but remembered to buy himself a new watch the same week. The breaking point came when I discovered he'd been hiding money in accounts I didn't know existed while telling me we couldn't afford to fix Hazel's teeth. That was Trevor in a nutshell. His image mattered more than his family's well-being. The divorce was surprisingly quick once I stopped believing his promises to change. He didn't even fight for custody. Initially, kids didn't fit with his new bachelor lifestyle. We settled into our new rhythm beautifully. Weekday mornings were orchestrated chaos, making lunches while quizzing Hazel on spelling words, finding Felix's perpetually missing left shoe, rushing to school where I'd drop them off before heading to my own job in the same building. As the elementary school librarian, I had the perfect schedule. I could peek into their classrooms during the day, eat lunch with them sometimes, and we all went home together at 3:30. Thursday nights were pizza and movie nights, where we'd pile on the couch with our discount pizza from Tony's, and the kids would argue over whether to watch Frozen again or try something new. Felix always won with Frozen. Saturday mornings were for the farmer's market, where Mr. Chen would slip extra strawberries into our basket with a wink, and Hazel would spend her allowance on honey sticks. Sundays were for the park, where Felix conquered his fear of the big slide and Hazel taught herself to do flips on the monkey bars. Trevor had the kids every other weekend, an arrangement that seemed to work for everyone. He'd pick them up Friday evening in his pristine BMW, always honking instead of coming to the door, and return them Sunday night, usually full of sugar and exhausted. "Daddy let us have ice cream for breakfast," Felix would report cheerfully, while Hazel would roll her eyes and whisper to me later that Daddy spent most of the time on his phone. The peace lasted exactly 4 months after the divorce. That's when Simone entered the picture. I'll never forget the first time the kids mentioned her. "Daddy has a new friend," Hazel had said carefully one Sunday night, studying my face for a reaction. "She's really young and wears a lot of sparkly things." "That's nice, sweetheart," I'd replied, keeping my voice neutral while braiding her hair for bed. "Is she kind to you?" "She tries to be our friend, but it's weird," Hazel said. "She keeps asking us to call her Mommy Simone, but I told her we already have a mom." That should have been my first warning sign, but I was so determined to be the bigger person, to not be the bitter ex-wife, that I ignored my instincts. Rita Blackstone, my lawyer, had told me during our final meeting, "Document everything, Bethany. Even if Trevor seems cooperative now, people change when new relationships begin. Keep records of everything involving the kids." I'd nodded and filed her advice away, thinking I'd never need it. Trevor had been so reasonable during the divorce proceedings once I'd caught him hiding assets. He'd actually seemed relieved when I filed for divorce, eager to sign papers and move on with his life. "Let's keep this civilized for the kids," he'd said with that salesman smile that once made me believe he loved me. "They need both their parents happy and healthy." The trouble started subtly. First, it was the gifts. A new iPad for Hazel, an expensive gaming system for Felix, things I could never afford on my librarian salary. Then came the promises. "Daddy says if we live with him, we can get a puppy," Felix announced one day. "And we'd have our own rooms in a big house with a pool," Hazel added, though she looked guilty saying it. Every Sunday return became harder. The kids would come back comparing our small apartment to Trevor's new rental house, our used car to his BMW, our careful budgeting to his casual spending. But I held steady, reminding them that love wasn't measured in things, that our life was full of its own kind of richness. We had our bedtime stories, our Sunday morning pancakes, our Friday afternoon trips to the library where they got to pick any books they wanted. We had each other, fully present, not distracted by phones or clients or the need to impress anyone. I thought that would be enough. I thought our little life, full of love and laughter and hand-drawn pictures on the refrigerator, could compete with Trevor's flashy promises. I was wrong. The custody modification letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while I was shelving returns in the library's picture book section. I remember the exact moment because I was holding The Very Hungry Caterpillar, thinking about how Felix still loved that book even at 6 years old when the school secretary walked in with an envelope. "This was just delivered for you by courier," she said, her expression sympathetic, like she somehow knew it was bad news. My hands shook as I opened it right there between the stacks. "Emergency motion for modification of custody," the header read. "Petitioner Trevor Cromwell seeks immediate full custody of minor children due to respondent's mental instability and threatening behavior towards said children." The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears I refused to let fall. Mental instability? Threatening behavior? I sank onto one of the tiny chairs meant for kindergartners, the letter trembling in my hands as I read Trevor's sworn statement. According to him, I'd been leaving the children home alone while I went out at night. I was unstable, prone to violent outbursts. Most damaging of all, I'd been sending him increasingly unhinged text messages threatening to harm Hazel and Felix if he tried to spend more time with them. "This is insane," I told Rita Blackstone an hour later, having left work early claiming a family emergency. I sat in her office with its diplomas and certificates covering the walls, my voice cracking as I pushed the papers across her mahogany desk. "I haven't left them alone once, not even to run to the mailbox. And these supposed threatening messages? I barely text Trevor at all anymore." Rita frowned as she read, her expression growing more concerned with each page. "Bethany, I need to see your phone. These are serious allegations." She turned her computer screen toward me, showing printouts Trevor's lawyer had submitted as evidence. "These texts are from your phone number." I stared at the messages in horror. They were vicious, unhinged, nothing I would ever write or even think. "You destroyed our family and now you want to take my babies?" one read. "I'll hurt them before I let that whore raise them." Another said, "If I can't have them, no one can. They'll pay for your sins." "I didn't send these." My voice rose to a pitch I barely recognized. I fumbled for my phone, nearly dropping it in my haste to show her our actual text history. "Look, here's everything between Trevor and me for the past 3 months. It's just pickup times and soccer schedules." Rita studied both sets of messages, her legal mind already working. "These threatening texts are all from last week, but your phone shows no record of them." She looked up at me sharply. "Is there any chance someone else could have accessed your phone, or that you have another phone?" "No, I only have this one." Then a memory surfaced. "Wait, my old phone was stolen from my car 3 months ago. I filed a police report and everything. I had to get a new phone and number." Did Trevor know about the theft? I thought back. Yes, I mentioned it during a pickup because I told him to use my new number, but that phone was deactivated. I called the phone company myself. Rita's expression darkened. "Unless someone reactivated it or cloned it. Bethany, this is a sophisticated setup. We need to hire a digital forensics expert immediately." The first hearing was 3 days later. I'd barely slept, spending every night going through my records, gathering character references, trying to build a defense against lies. But how do you prove you didn't send messages that came from your own phone number? Walking into that courtroom felt like entering a gladiator arena where the outcome was already decided. Trevor had hired Donovan Price, a lawyer known for his theatrical flair and ability to sway judges. Trevor himself looked every inch the concerned father in his charcoal suit and conservative tie, a stark contrast to his usual flashy style. He'd even removed his Rolex, going for a modest watch instead. Everything was calculated. When Trevor took the stand, his performance was Oscar-worthy. His voice broke as he described his fear for our children. "I never wanted it to come to this, Your Honor. I still care for Bethany despite our differences. But these messages," he paused, seeming to gather himself, "I can't sleep at night. She's always been jealous of my success, resentful that I moved on with Simone. But threatening our children? I had to act." Simone testified too, her young face arranged in an expression of grave concern. "The children have told me things," she said, glancing at me with what looked like pity, "about their mother's moods, her anger. Hazel asked me once if it was normal for mommies to cry and scream at night. It broke my heart." That was a complete fabrication, and the worst part was I couldn't prove it. Hazel had never said anything like that because it never happened, but Simone delivered the lie with such sincerity that even I almost believed her. The provisional ruling was devastating. The judge granted Trevor temporary primary custody pending a full investigation. I was reduced to supervised visits twice a week at a court-appointed facility. The look on my children's faces when the social worker explained the new arrangement nearly destroyed me. "Why can't we go home with you?" Felix asked, clinging to my hand after the hearing. "It's just temporary, baby," I managed to say through my tight throat. "The judge needs to figure some things out." But Hazel, my perceptive 8-year-old, looked at me with eyes far too knowing for her age. "Dad's lying, isn't he?" she whispered when Trevor was distracted talking to his lawyer. "Those messages he showed everyone. You didn't write them." "How did you know about the messages?" I asked, alarmed that she'd been exposed to this ugliness. "Dad showed them to us on his phone," she admitted, her voice small. "He said you were sick and needed help. But Mom, I know you didn't write those things. The words are all wrong. You never call Simone those names, not even when you're mad." I pulled her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, memorizing it because I didn't know when I'd be able to hold her freely again. "We're going to figure this out, sweetheart, I promise." But even as I said it, I felt the walls closing in. Trevor had played this perfectly. He'd found a way to use my own phone number against me, to make me look unstable and dangerous. Without proof that those messages were fake, I was going to lose everything that mattered. That night, alone in my empty apartment, I stared at the kids' artwork on the walls and wondered how someone I'd once loved could orchestrate such cruelty. The answer came easily. Trevor had never really loved us. We were just accessories to his image, and now that he had Simone to play the role of devoted stepmother, he wanted the complete set. 3 days before the final custody hearing, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by papers, receipts, phone records, and the fragments of my former life. The digital forensics expert I'd hired with my entire savings account had just left, his verdict crushing what remained of my hope. "The messages definitely came from a phone registered to your number," he'd said, packing up his equipment with an apologetic shrug. "Without the actual device that sent them, I can't prove they're fake. The phone company's records only show that messages were sent, not the content or the specific device." I'd spent $1,200 I didn't have for him to tell me what I already knew. I was trapped in Trevor's web with no way out. That evening was my supervised visit with the kids at the Family Services Center, a beige building that smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. We sat in a room with toys that dozens of other fractured families had played with, while a social worker named Janet pretended to read a magazine but watched our every interaction. Felix had brought his favorite dinosaur book, and I read it to him 3 times while he pressed against my side like he was trying to memorize the feeling. Hazel was quieter than usual, working on a puzzle in the corner. When our 2 hours were almost up, she came over and climbed into my lap, something she hadn't done in months. "Mommy?" she whispered into my ear while Felix was distracted with blocks. "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, sweetheart?" I kept my voice light, aware of Janet's attention. "I saw Daddy with 2 phones that looked exactly the same," she breathed, so quietly I almost missed it. "One was in Simone's purse yesterday when she picked us up from school. It had a pink case just like yours used to have, the one with the butterflies on it." My heart stopped. My old phone, the one I'd reported stolen from my car 3 months ago. The pink butterfly case had been a Mother's Day gift from the kids last year. I forced myself to stay calm, to not react in a way that would alarm Janet. "Are you sure, baby?" I asked, stroking her hair with a steady hand while my mind raced. She nodded against my shoulder. I saw Simone put it in her purse after she was typing on it in the car. She didn't know I was watching. She was parked outside the school, but she wasn't picking us up yet, just sitting there typing really fast and looking around like she was nervous. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Trevor must have taken my old phone before I'd reported it stolen. He'd been the one to suggest I leave it in the car that day when we'd met to discuss Felix's soccer schedule. "You don't need to bring your phone into the restaurant," he'd said. "We'll just be 5 minutes." But he'd forgotten something in his car, went back to the parking lot, and my phone had disappeared by the time I returned. "Hazel, honey, this is very important. Have you seen that phone recently? Do you know where Simone keeps it?" "In her purse," Hazel said immediately. "The big black one with the gold chains. She always has it with her. Even when she goes to the bathroom, she takes it." Then her voice got even smaller. "Mommy, I heard Daddy practicing with Mr. Price yesterday. They were laughing about how the judge believes everything because Daddy's such a good actor. He said once you're gone, they can get married and be a real family." My stomach churned, but I kept my expression neutral for Janet's sake. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart. You're very brave." That night, I called Rita at home, something I'd never done before. "We need to subpoena Simone Harding's belongings," I said without preamble. "Hazel saw my stolen phone in her purse, the one with the pink butterfly case. They're using it to send the fake messages." Rita's sigh was heavy through the phone. "Bethany, we can't get a subpoena based on an 8-year-old's observation. Judge Weston would never approve it. And even if we could, by the time we got the paperwork, that phone would have mysteriously disappeared. Trevor's too smart to leave evidence lying around once he knows we're onto him." "So what do I do? Just give up? Let him take my children based on lies?" "I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need actual evidence, not just suspicions." After I hung up, I sat in the dark living room staring at the spot where Felix always left his shoes. That's when Hazel, who was supposed to be asleep at Trevor's house, called me from the tablet I'd given her for emergencies. "Mommy, I can get the phone," she said, her face pixelated but determined on the screen. "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "Hazel, you're 8 years old. This is not your responsibility." "But I can do it," she insisted. "Tomorrow, Simone always asks me to get her lipstick from her purse when she's driving because she can't reach it. She does it every time we're in the car. I saw another phone in there that looks just like yours. I can switch them." "Honey, that's too dangerous. If they catch you, they won't catch me. I've been watching them, Mommy. They think I'm just a dumb little kid who doesn't understand anything. But I understand everything. I know Daddy is lying. I heard him tell Simone that after the hearing, they're going to move to California with us and you'll never see us again." The words hit me like a physical blow. California, 3,000 miles away. "Hazel, listen to me. I cannot let you do this. It's too risky." But my daughter, my brave, brilliant daughter, had already thought it through. "I'll do it during morning drop-off tomorrow. Simone always stops at Starbucks and asks me to get her lipstick while she's in the drive-thru because she says the barista is cute and she wants to look good. The phone is always in the inside pocket. I can grab it and put my old play phone in its place. She won't notice until later." "Where's your old play phone?" I asked, despite myself. "In my backpack. It looks just like a real phone. Daddy gave it to me last year when I asked for a phone. Remember? It's the same size and everything." I wanted to say no. Every maternal instinct screamed against involving my child in this mess. But then I thought about Trevor's plan to take them to California, about losing them forever based on lies I couldn't disprove without that phone. "If you do this," I said slowly, hating myself for even considering it, "you have to be incredibly careful. If Simone suspects anything—" "She won't," Hazel interrupted with confidence that both broke and amazed my heart. "I know exactly what to do. And Mom, I want to do this. They're trying to take us away from you with lies. That's not right. You always taught us that standing up for the truth is important, even when it's scary." We spent the next hour going over the plan in detail. Hazel would switch the phones during the morning Starbucks. Run, hide my old phone in her backpack and bring it to court. She'd practice the swap with her toys, showing me over video how quickly she could do it. "What if Simone's purse is closed?" I asked. "It never is. She always leaves it open on the passenger seat with her sunglasses on top." "What if the phone isn't there?" "Then I don't do anything and we think of another plan." By the time we hung up, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. I was putting my 8-year-old in the position of saving our family. What kind of mother does that? But what kind of mother lets her children be stolen by lies without fighting back with every tool available? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat by my phone, waiting for disaster, for Trevor to call screaming that Hazel had been caught, for everything to go wrong. But the call never came. The next morning, I put on my best dress, the navy one I'd worn to my job interview at the library 5 years ago. If this was going to be the fight of my life, I would look like someone worth fighting for. As I drove to the courthouse, I prayed to every deity I could think of that my 8-year-old daughter had pulled off what trained investigators couldn't, getting the evidence that would expose Trevor's lies. The truth was about to come out one way or another. The courtroom was packed that morning, every wooden bench filled with people who'd come to witness what they assumed would be my final humiliation. Trevor sat at the plaintiff's table, like a king holding court, occasionally leaning over to whisper something to Donovan Price, who nodded with the confidence of a lawyer who'd already won. Simone sat directly behind Trevor, her designer purse at her feet, wearing a conservative dress that made her look like a kindergarten teacher instead of the 28-year-old yoga instructor she actually was. My children were in the back row with my mother, who'd flown in from Oregon on a red-eye flight, spending money she didn't have because no one takes my grandbabies without a fight. Felix was wearing his dinosaur tie, the one he thought brought good luck. Hazel had on her blue dress with daisies, sitting straighter than I'd ever seen her, her small backpack clutched in her lap. Judge Weston entered and everyone rose. As we sat back down, I caught Hazel's eye. She gave me the tiniest nod, and my heart nearly exploded with a mixture of hope and terror. Donovan Price wasted no time. "Your Honor, we're here today because Ms. Cromwell poses a clear and present danger to her own children. We have incontrovertible evidence of her threats, her instability, and her complete inability to provide a safe environment for Hazel and Felix." He stood up, holding Trevor's phone like a prosecutor presenting a murder weapon. "I present Exhibit C, a series of deeply disturbing messages from Ms. Cromwell's phone number to my client." He connected the phone to the courtroom's presentation system, and suddenly my supposed words filled. The screen in letters 2 feet tall. If I can't have them, you won't either. I'll hurt them before I let you take them. They'll pay for your betrayal, Trevor. Your whore will never be their mother. Each message was dated and time-stamped from the previous week. The courtroom erupted in whispers of shock and disgust. A woman in the row behind me actually said, "My God, those poor children." Price continued, his voice booming with righteous indignation. "These messages show a pattern of escalating threats. Ms. Cromwell is unraveling, Your Honor. She cannot accept that Mr. Cromwell has moved on, found happiness, and wants to provide a stable two-parent home for his children." Judge Weston leaned forward, his weathered face creased with concern as he read through the messages. "Ms. Cromwell, these are extremely serious threats. Threatening harm to children, particularly your own children, is something this court cannot and will not tolerate." Rita stood up beside me. "Your Honor, my client categorically denies sending these messages. Her phone records show no such texts being sent." "Then how do you explain that they came from her phone number?" Price shot back. "We have the telephone company records right here confirming origination from Ms. Cromwell's number." Judge Weston turned to me, his eyes cold with judgment. "Ms. Cromwell, can you explain these messages?" I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice steady. "Your Honor, I never sent those messages. My previous phone was stolen from my car 3 months ago. I filed a police report which my attorney has submitted as evidence. Someone has been using that stolen phone to frame me." "A convenient excuse," Price interrupted with a dismissive laugh. "Your Honor, this is desperate fabrication from a desperate woman." That's when the small voice came from the back of the courtroom. "Your Honor?" Everyone turned. Hazel had stood up, her face pale but determined. Judge Weston looked irritated. "Young lady, please sit down. This is not the time for interruptions. Children cannot address the court without being called as witnesses." "Please, Your Honor." Hazel's voice grew stronger. "I have evidence that my dad is lying." Trevor jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, this is highly inappropriate. She's just a child. She's obviously been coached by her mother." But Hazel kept talking, walking forward now, her backpack in her hands. "Your Honor, I have my mom's real phone right here." She pulled out my current phone with its cracked screen. "This is the phone she uses every day, but more important, I have this." She pulled out a second phone with a pink butterfly case, and the courtroom gasped. Simone's face went white as she frantically grabbed for her purse, searching through it with growing panic. "This is my mom's old phone that was stolen 3 months ago," Hazel announced, her young voice carrying absolute conviction. "I took it from Simone's purse this morning because I've seen her and Daddy using it to send fake messages." "You little brat," Simone burst out, then immediately clamped her hand over her mouth. Judge Weston's gavel came down hard. "Order! Everyone will be seated immediately except for the child. Bailiff, secure both phones as evidence now." Hazel walked to the bailiff and handed over both phones with the dignity of someone presenting evidence to save a life, which, in a way, she was. "Your Honor," she continued, her voice never wavering, "I know those messages are fake because I was with my mom when some of them were supposedly sent. Look at the timestamp on that one." She pointed to the screen. "Thursday at 2:47 p.m. I know exactly where Mom was then because she was reading to my class. It was my turn to have her read to everyone, and she was reading Charlotte's Web. Mrs. Morrison, my teacher, can confirm this. She even took a picture of Mom reading to us that she posted on the class webpage." Rita immediately pulled out her laptop. "Your Honor, I can access that webpage right now if you'll permit me." "Do it," Judge Weston ordered. His entire demeanor changed. Within minutes, Rita had the class webpage on the courtroom screen. There I was, sitting in a tiny chair surrounded by second graders, reading Charlotte's Web at 2:43 p.m. on Thursday. The photo was time-stamped. "But there's more," Hazel said, turning to face her father. "I heard you practicing your testimony with Mr. Price yesterday. You were laughing about how good an actor you are. You said, 'She'll never see them again once we move to California.' You said the judge would believe anything because moms always look crazy in custody battles." Trevor's face had gone from red to white. "She's lying. This is all lies." But Simone had cracked completely. "Trevor, I told you this was going too far, she said, her voice shaking. I didn't sign up for this. You said we were just going to make her look bad, not frame her for threatening the kids. The courtroom erupted. Judge Weston's gavel came down repeatedly. Order! Order! When quiet finally returned, the judge spoke in a voice like thunder. Mr. Price, I'm ordering immediate forensic analysis of both phones. Court is recessed for 2 hours while this evidence is examined. Mr. Cromwell and Miss Harding, you are not to leave this courthouse. Bailiff, ensure they remain in separate rooms. 2 hours later, we reconvened. The court's technical expert testified that the pink phone was indeed registered to my old number, reported stolen 3 months ago. The threatening messages had all been sent from that phone, not my current one. Security footage from the school, subpoenaed during the recess, showed Simone's car in the parking lot at the exact times the messages were sent, with her clearly visible in the driver's seat using a phone. But the most damaging evidence came from the phone itself. Simone had forgotten to delete the draft messages, where she'd practiced writing threats to make them sound like me. One draft read, "Would B say hurt them or harm them?" which sounds more unhinged. Felix, who had been silent through everything, suddenly ran from his grandmother to me, throwing his arms around my waist. I knew you didn't write those mean things, Mommy. Daddy made us practice saying bad things about you, but I didn't want to. He said if we didn't help him, we'd never see Grandma again. Judge Weston's face was purple with rage. Mr. Cromwell, in my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a calculated, malicious attempt to manipulate this court. You have committed fraud, presented false evidence, and worst of all, you've psychologically tortured your own children in pursuit of your vendetta. The ruling was swift and devastating for Trevor. He lost all custody rights except for supervised visitation once a month. Criminal charges were being filed for fraud, fabricating evidence, and custodial interference. Simone agreed to testify against him in exchange for a plea deal. As Trevor was led out by court officers to be processed for criminal charges, he turned to look at Hazel. "How could you do this to me? I'm your father." My 8-year-old daughter stood tall and met his gaze without flinching. "You tried to take us from our mom with lies. Real fathers don't do that." Judge Weston's ruling was swift and severe. "Mr. Cromwell, I've seen many custody battles in my 30 years on this bench, but rarely have I witnessed such calculated manipulation. You've committed fraud upon this court, tampered with evidence, and worse, you've psychologically manipulated your own children to turn against their mother. This court finds you guilty of contempt, and I'm referring this case for criminal prosecution." Trevor lost all custody rights, except supervised visitation once a month at a court-appointed facility. He was ordered to pay my legal fees, undergo psychiatric evaluation, and faced criminal charges for fraud, evidence tampering, and harassment. The state prosecutor, who'd been sitting in the gallery, approached Rita immediately after the ruling about filing formal charges. Simone's testimony in the follow-up hearings revealed the full extent of Trevor's plan. He'd taken my phone during that meeting 3 months ago, had Simone reactivate it using a fake ID, and they'd spent weeks crafting messages that would make me look unhinged. He said no judge would give custody to a crazy mother who threatened her kids, Simone told the prosecutor, her voice small and defeated. "He promised me we'd be a perfect family once you were out of the picture. I was stupid enough to believe him." She got 18 months probation and community service in exchange for her cooperation. The last I heard, she'd moved back to her parents' house in Michigan and was working at a daycare, which seemed ironic given everything. That night, as I tucked my children into their beds in our little apartment, their permanent home now, Hazel asked me a question that stopped my heart. "Mom, are you mad that I took the phone without permission?" I sat on her bed, smoothing her hair that still smelled like the vanilla shampoo she loved. "What you did was incredibly brave, sweetheart. But what matters most is that you knew the truth and stood up for it, even when it was scary." "I learned that from you," she said simply. "You always tell us that libraries aren't just about books, they're about truth and knowledge, and the truth always finds a way." Felix crawled into bed with us, his dinosaur pajamas soft against my arm. "Mommy, I'm sorry I didn't tell the truth before. Daddy said if we didn't say bad things about you, we'd never see Grandma again, and we couldn't have a puppy." and he'd be very sad. "Oh, baby, none of this was your fault. Your daddy put you in an impossible position. You're 6 years old. You shouldn't have had to choose between your parents." The recovery wasn't immediate or easy. Both children started therapy with Dr. Margaret Winters, a child psychologist who specialized in parental alienation cases. For months, Felix had nightmares about being taken away. Hazel became hypervigilant, constantly checking that our doors were locked and asking where I was every moment she couldn't see me. But slowly, steadily, we healed. 6 months later, our lives had found a new rhythm. I'd gotten a promotion to head librarian, which came with a salary increase that let us move to a bigger apartment with a small garden. Felix grew tomatoes there, carefully watering them every morning before school, proud when we used them in our salads. Hazel joined the debate club, where her teacher said she had a remarkable ability to see through to the truth of things. We adopted a cat, not the puppy Trevor had promised, but a gentle orange tabby Hazel named Matilda after the Roald Dahl character, because she's smart and brave and doesn't let bullies win. Every Sunday, we still went to the farmer's market, where Mr. Chen now saved us the best strawberries and always asked how the brave little truth teller was doing. At Hazel's school play last week, where she played a brave knight defending her kingdom, I watched from the 3rd row with Felix beside me, his hand in mine. My mother had flown in again, this time for celebration rather than crisis. As Hazel delivered her lines about standing up for what's right, even when you're small, I thought about how sometimes heroes come in unexpected packages. Trevor had counted on the judge believing him over me. He was the successful real estate agent with the charming smile and the perfect suit. I was just a librarian, a quiet woman who read stories to children and lived in a small apartment. He'd never imagined his 8-year-old daughter would be the one to bring his lies crashing down. During his monthly supervised visits, Trevor tried to rebuild his relationship with the children, but trust, once shattered, takes time to repair. Hazel was polite but distant. Felix, more forgiving by nature, would play board games with him but always asked when he could go home to me. The supervisor told me Trevor often spent the visits in tears, whether genuine or performative. I couldn't say. Last month, I received a letter from a woman in Nevada whose ex-husband was trying something similar with falsified text messages. She'd read about our case in the news. "Your daughter's courage saved my family too," she wrote. "The judge in our case specifically cited your precedent when he ordered forensic analysis of the phones. The pink phone now sits in an evidence locker somewhere, a reminder that in this digital age, the truth leaves traces. But the real evidence, the proof of who truly loved and protected those children, was never in a phone. It was in a little girl's courage to stand up in a courtroom full of adults and say, 'That's not the truth.' Today, as I watch my children play in our garden, their laughter genuine again, I think about the lessons we've all learned. That truth matters, even when lies seem more powerful. That courage can come from the smallest voices. That real love isn't about expensive gifts or grand promises, but about showing up every day, reading bedtime stories, making dinosaur pancakes, and teaching your children that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when your voice shakes." Hazel asked me recently if I forgave her father. I told her honestly that forgiveness takes time, but that I was grateful for one thing. His actions taught us all how strong we really were. "We're like Charlotte's Web," she said, referencing the book I'd been reading when those fake messages were sent. "Some people try to destroy the web, but if it's built with love and truth, it holds." She was right. Our web held, our family held, and in the end, truth won. Trevor's fancy lawyer, his calculated tears, his perfect performance, none of it mattered when faced with one 8-year-old girl brave enough to speak the truth. Sometimes justice doesn't come from lawyers or judges or legal procedures. Sometimes it comes from a child who loves their mother enough to stand up and say, "You're lying and I can prove it." As I close this story, I want to leave you with this. If you're fighting for your children, if you're facing lies and manipulation, don't give up. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember that truth has a way of surfacing, sometimes from the most unexpected sources. My daughter Hazel taught me that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear daisy print dresses and carry unicorn backpacks. Sometimes they're 8 years old and scared but speak up anyway. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the most powerful truth. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough to change everything. If this story resonated with you, if you face similar battles or know someone who has, please share this video. Your story matters, and you're not alone in this fight. Leave a comment below about your own experiences or how you've seen truth triumph over lies. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, survival, and the unbreakable bond between parents and children. Together, we can make sure no parent faces these battles alone.